concepts, phonetics, syntax, like that. And I will give you some examples in a second. Now in music, there I am as a young man conducting the orchestra. So in music, actually, the questions are the same. How is it organized? What are the mental structures? And the goal of musical biomusicology is the same. It's the same goal. How do we organize this stuff? And what do we know? We know, and here I can use the word grammaticality. Some musical structures are ungrammatical. So if I put on the Beatles there, and John Lennon made a mistake in the middle of playing it, and he played the wrong chord, for some reason, which I will not speculate why, you would know that immediately. You don't have to be musically trained. You would say, ugh, what's that? Right? There's hierarchical structures. There's multiple levels of organization. It's the same as language. We can process musical signals. And we also, it's amazing, we know that some signals are musical signals and some signals are linguistic signals and some signals are not either music or language, right? They're just annoying sounds, right? That might make it hard to hear me, but it didn't make it hard to understand me if you hear me, right? Your brain says that's not language. Or if I put on some Mozart now, and keep talking, you're not going to get confused. Your language part deals with language, your music part deals with music. If I put on someone else talking at the same time, then you're going to get confused because it's hard to do, you can't do two language things at the same time very easily. Or if you put on several different pieces of music at the same time, you're going to have problems. But there's no problem understanding hearing language, hearing music, and hearing this at the same time. There are three different systems of perceptions of sound. That's modularity, right? And all those things we did, you identify the key, you identify the harmony, you identify the meter, the grouping, the phrasing, all of that you do automatically. Everyone does. Okay. So these are some of the levels of music, the melody level, harmony level, rhythmic level. And if you're interested in music as cognitive science, this is the book that started it all. In 1983, a book called Generative Theory of Tonal Music. Things have changed a little bit, but not very much, by a musicologist and a composer and a linguist. And they are analyzing the structure of music in terms of how it is represented in your mind when you hear it. Unconsciously, right? Not, right? Niesoznательно, unconsciously, right? It is not something you, like I said, try to hear yourself hearing. You can't do that. It just happens automatically. Okay? And this book is an explicit attempt to understand the rules, the unconscious rules of musical perception. Okay? Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Well, things have changed a little bit in the last 30 years, but this is really like the Bible of musical cognition. Okay? And this is from there, some of the different structures, the modules that they identify, doesn't matter. Now, how do we know that music is its own module? You take Fodor's characteristics and you apply them. It's universal. Everybody has it. Everybody starts as a small child. Acquisition happens in a particular order. It's automatic. It's old. And there are physical impairments, unfortunately, which affect only music. Some people cannot. Some people have a brain injury and they cannot process music, or they cannot remember melodies, or they cannot sing a tune, or something. Now, many people think that they cannot sing, but they're wrong. That is, they maybe don't have a nice voice, but you can see with little children, everybody can imitate, if they're healthy, can imitate simple musicals. Okay? Musical talent, like the ability to write symphonies or quartets, or to play the violin, that's completely different. I'm not talking about talent or ability. I'm talking about instinctive ability of everybody. Same with language. Everybody speaks a native language. Some people are better in a public speaking. Some people have more words. Some people can write beautiful poetry or something. That's talent. That's a different question. This is about the basic biology. Everybody has the basic biology. Talent is interesting too, but I don't think we can understand talent until we understand the basic biology, which we don't. So let's start with the first things first. Okay? And then music has this thing called toniness, the tonality, we call it. Tonality, which is unique to music. There's nothing like that in language. There are tone languages, but that is totally different. If you're interested, like Chinese, Mandarin, if you're interested, we can talk about the differences between tonality in music and tone in language. They're totally different. Okay? All right. And there's universals. Now, physical impairments. You know about aphasia, right? A brain damage which affects language. There's Broca's aphasia, Wernicke's aphasia. If you study psycholinguistics, they tell you about this. One type affects grammar, the other type affects meaning. They're in different parts of the brain, so it shows that this is organized physically, neurologically. In music, there's also things like that. And here, it's not as well known, so I put a few references. Peretz and other colleagues have articles that show evidence for impairments that affect only musical ability. Like inability to do the beat, where you can't find it. Or inability to understand a melody, or to organize it. And music doesn't sound like music. It just sounds like a lot of noise, you know. Luckily, that's not very common. But what's very interesting is, that musical impairments, narushenia, right, impairments. Musical impairments do not affect language. And language impairments do not affect music. In fact, music is used as therapy for language impairments, right? People with aphasia are helped by music. And people with many diseases. Music is therapeutic. Now, we do not understand how that works at all. But we know for Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, a lot of these neurological diseases, music really helps people. Now, why does music help people? I mean, thank God that it does, right? That's nice and useful, but we do not understand, the cognitive science does not understand that. Because if they're different modules, then why should music help if they're all separate? It's not an easy question, but it's very interesting. But the impairments are separate. The impairments, the narushenia, they're separate. And there's visual impairments, conceptual impairments. There are people with language, perfectly good language, who don't really understand, who are, you know, have some other mental problem, right? Crazy people, like truly crazy people, like schizophrenic people, usually their language is okay. Like they make sentences, they have verbs and adjectives and past tense and present tense and future tense. Everything is fine, except they don't make any sense because they have a different problem, not a language problem. Okay. Now, universals of language is something that everybody knows, right? There's parts of speech, there's hierarchical structures. You can put, you know, you can put one thing inside another thing, and you go all the way down, you know? We all know that every language has that. It doesn't matter if it's English or Russian, Swahili, it doesn't matter. Hierarchical structure is everywhere. Hello? Hello? That's weird. Maybe it's just dead. Alright, now I'm just going to. That's another thing. That's really annoying. There's another. Okay. There's another thing which is, you know Snickers? Snickers bar? That you get from the machine for 30 rubles? 25. And you know sneakers. It's like shoes. Now in English, Snickers and sneakers are totally different words, right? Because it and e are totally different phonemes. Now for Russian speakers, that one's not so easy to hear, right? Because you don't have two phonemes there, you only have one. And so when I say Snickers, especially if I trick you, when I say Snickers, Snickers, you might not know which one it is, right? And they do experiments with native speakers, and they say, you know, the computer says sneakers, and the computer says Snickers, and then it says everything in between, and native speakers say, right there. That's the distinction. It's called discrete perception, which is actually discrete, right? So that you either perceive E or you perceive it. You don't perceive something in between. But, right? So if I say sneakers, you don't say, oh, there's some chocolate sneakers. Right? With 50% of the meaning from here and 50% of the meaning from... We never do. Right? It's one or the other. Now, I might draw the line here, and you might draw the line here, and you might draw the line here, but everybody, English speakers, draws the line somewhere completely. This is E, and this is it. Same thing in Russian, right? With like, I don't know, you know, polka and polka, right? Hard and soft L, which is difficult for English speakers because we don't have it, and I can't hear it, but I know I have to say it, so I try to say it differently, right? And if you do the same experiment, every Russian speaker will say, oops, there it is, right there. Everything on this side is polka, everything on this side is polka, and nothing is both, right? It sounds good. Look at this. So do you think it's battery? Do you want to call him? It's probably battery. I mean, you know, we can do the old trick of warming up the batteries. Wait, let me try to see if this works. No. I don't know what. Okay, thanks. Many levels of representation. And if you were at Sabine's lecture, she talked a lot about ungrammatical sentences, right? The things that are impossible to do. That's ungrammaticality, or they're called constraints, which we translate as cognition. Constraints, things you cannot do on any level. Like you cannot put certain sounds together in any language, right? You just can't. Or you cannot do certain kind of grammatical structures. You just can't. That's just oh, there it went. Now it's gone. As soon as you made the phone call. Right? Now, what are the universals in music? Okay, there are universals in music. We're talking Indian raga and Mozart. And, you know, South African click thing, right? All these different musical kinds. Octaves, right, are always perceived as identical. So when you sing, a man and a woman sing together the same song, they're not singing the same note, they're singing an octave or 2 octaves apart, right? But you don't hear those as different. It's not harmony, it's the same note. Octaves are always perceived as the same, always, in every musical system. Why is that? And there is a physical explanation, right? It vibrates twice as fast, but it's still a perceptual thing. That's something your mind gives, okay? There's hierarchical structure in music. We talked about that. The thing with Snickers and sneakers is also true with like re and re diez, like D and D sharp or whatever. You know, if you go up on the piano, well, the piano is built with discrete distinctions, right? There's nothing in between. But if you make a computer give you something in between, it sounds like a mistake. Right? Or it just sounds out of tune, right? It's out of tune.